Welcome to In Search of the Future, the series. Cosmic Contact. This episode is on the subject of aliens, UFOs, NHI, which stands for non-human intelligence, and all of these mysterious subjects that have been intriguing and puzzling humanity for a long time. That's the theme of this episode. And Connie?
Yes, well, we're just so excited that humanity has reached the vibratory level where contact with our cosmic family is imminent. As we open our hearts and align with that frequency we call the trust frequency. So everyone just listen up, ponder your avenue into the future.
And here are some friends of ours who are pretty darn amazing. I think you'll agree. Here we go.
One of the things that's really excited me about the potential for the future, what's coming, is over the last 4 years, I've been living with and interacting with the Kogi people. And for those who don't know, they're one of the most remote tribes on the planet Earth. But in particular, they speak of being the star people. And living in their villages, they have stones where they have carvings of the entire universe and where different star systems are and such. And they have incredible stories about how they traveled from those stars to where they are now. In fact, one of the really interesting things for them is their most sacred thing is the conch shell, because they believe that the conch shell is a map of the galaxy that we live in and that everything is placed on it. Well, the reason this stuff about the star people and things really touches me is, number one, the Kogi say that they carry the wisdom of the star people and that they intend to come into the world, which they have started to do, and to share more and more about our potential as human beings for the future because of the wisdom that they are bringing to share, which came from the stars.
Come to us every time. When I was a little fella, the one must have been this high, and I was about this high. And he stayed with me for 4 years. And if you ever felt to touch a frog, his skin is the same as the frog.
Okay, when I was about 16, 17, in 1968 was my first eye contact with a 3 to 4 story eye spaceship. Now this ship was silence, not going. It was just hovering there like that. And that's what got me, the sound. There was no sound. So I was using my inner dimension to look inside. And they were doing the same to me. They was reading me and I was reading them.
Part of what ET contact is about, and I can speak from experience because I've had it for my entire life. And since I do remember coming in and incarnating in, contact for me was natural. I was waiting for the beings to come because it's family. It's a family connection. And we can get caught up on, just because of what's in media and whatnot, we can get caught up on the technology, or we can get caught up on, maybe too much that's in the mind. And one of the things that I can share about contact is it's very much a primordial part of ourself. It's part of our ancient DNA. And when that gets stimulated, that ancient DNA gets stimulated, there's a reconnection, and this reconnection that's occurring in our body. And it's on such a unique level that goes on within our body that, of course, our mind changes and things shift. But what you can do is you can go out and you can go in the night sky, you can even go in the day sky, and you can ask to receive, you can ask to make communion, you can ask to make connection. And if you can ask in a way that's very genuine about a reconnection within yourself, there's a good probability it's going to happen. And so, for example, if you happen to be, let's say, thinking of a loved one maybe that you haven't spoken to for a while, and maybe somebody that you have some disagreement or discordance with, but someone that you do love, that you do care about, and then all of a sudden you feel a feeling in your heart, and let's say you look up in the sky and you see a ship, you see a flash of light, and you see something that is specifically meant for you. That's part of that confirmation. And so contact doesn't necessarily have to be a ship coming down, a being coming out, shaking your hand, and then, giving you everything about life. That's not what this is about. The initial steps, those initial phases, are about a genuine reconnection within our heart, with the people around us, the people that we are here to also serve and support. That's what I know contact is about. And it's available to anybody and everybody who seeks and wants that connection as we're evolving here on Mother Earth and as the cosmos is evolving with us.
We're all just cosmic humans, laughing and crying, learning and being just who we are. We're human, but we're also made of stars. We're made of stars.
I had an extraordinary experience. Amongst other extraordinary experiences, this one ranks very high, because it had to do with on the third night of the Palisades Malibu fire recently. Devastating, apocalyptic fires. I looked up from my balcony and I saw out over the ocean what I thought was a meteor coming into the earth. There was a stratospheric halo as it entered. And I immediately was watching to see if it would fall, but it didn't fall into the ocean, it turned, and it drifted behind these very large, dark smoke clouds. I had photographed this orb, whatever it is, about 15 or 20 years ago. And because it was handheld, it was bounced all over the place. I could not get a good shot. But this time, knowing that, I ran up, I put my elbows down on the balcony, and I took my camera and aimed it. Well, I was aiming at the clouds. I wasn't expecting anything, but this orb suddenly came out of the clouds and was moving closer and closer to me. I was having that inner sense of like, is this a good thing? But it was directing itself at me. It lasted for 7 seconds. And what is astounding, because the experience itself was so remarkable and tied into, on an apocalyptic night like this, the fires that I had experienced directly 6 years before. And the narrative, the underpinning story during these apocalyptic times is that there is a pulse, there's something that is triggering a transformation, a type of metamorphosis. And I was very, very moved by what had happened to me, because I took the film, the 7 seconds, and I went frame by frame. And I started to see what is a classic UFO light ship, classic alien with the big heads and the large eyes, and then sigils and glyphs and phantoms and ghosts. What it was was a type of wave of suggestiveness. And I started to think about, what is it in a plant? What's in a frog? Why does a frog move from being a tadpole into climbing out onto the land? What is it in a flower that goes from a bud to a blossom? And this is what I started to discover, because my home, my art, has all grown out of this sacred location, because I live on Chumash, ancient Chumash, sacred land. And because I do, I've always felt like a custodian. It's not mine to own, it's mine to caretake. And in that response, I feel this is what the ancestors here desired as well. Not to own, but to caretake. And that's why this orb felt like a gardener or a guardian. It wasn't something that was meant to show up and say, I am this. Because everything in my work, everything in my art having to do with the language of the watchers, the crop circles, all of these elements do not stay. They don't leave a signature, because essentially they are trying to trigger our curiosity. They're not trying to fill in like a parent would, oh, this, children, is what you need to know. It's the very things that are not stated, that are implied, that leaves it up to us to put the story together. So I put the story together. Here I am on sacred land at a time of incredible fires, once again. So this is not something that you can resist. It's something that's upon you. And this is what the apocalypse is. It's upon us. But if we don't look at it as something that is awful and negative, although that fire was awful and negative, but realize that the counterpoint to what's going on is to get us to trust that we're to develop a relationship, not by answering a mystery like a whodunit, like Agatha Christie, but actually answering the mysteries of life, which, like love, are not figure-outable. They are that which we must allow, because it's not the head. And this was what was fascinating for this orb. I realized whatever was triggering in me was not personal. It was part of my symbolical human structure. Because if you think about it, what is it that triggers a flower to blossom? It's not told to blossom. Something within the organism itself begins to respond differently. So my sense is that the UAPs are part of a leavening process. It's not an invasion. It's a type of catalyst, meaning that only if we discover that it must be through ourselves as human, that we determine the relationship with these qualities, that will we begin to mature. Otherwise, we are essentially allowing ourselves, like children, to say we are not that. And the truth behind all of this, yes, we are. We don't live in a linear reality. We live in a holographic reality. Everything is expressing this truth. And when we understand that, there's no there in a hologram. So what we do is create coordinate points and places of interaction where we can create forms of communication. And this is what's happening. The communication is not to fill in what's missing. It's what is not there for us to bring out of ourselves the answers that can't be known through someone else, because it's how do we establish a relationship within ourselves, trust our own energies, and realize that relationships that can't be proven, don't stick around long enough to point your finger at, are not doing that because it's wrong. It's doing it because we're maturing. It's not showing up to fill in. It's showing up to draw out. And that's what my art is. The questions I asked, literally, I drew them out.
It must be so silly for aliens to look at humans and be like, wait a second.
Aliens have a lot of patience. Aliens have a lot of patience because we are very far ahead. And so humans they're just trying to find their way, and we're letting them. We're letting them find their way. We're being patient about it, okay?
Some would ask, why be patient when you could just intervene with all your technology and just like help us?
Free will.
Free will.
Earth has the contract of free will, and so they cannot intervene unless we ask them.
Unless we are asked, blatantly asked for help, we cannot intervene because it is your destiny.
Also, though, there has to be like a mass tipping point. There has to be a mass tipping point in order for you to help the collective at whole. So right now you're helping people individually, which is why you come and talk to me, so that I can share the info with the folks
through your music.
It's all part of the plan.
In 1977, I was first contacted when President Carter was elected to participate in a top secret report to President Carter about the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence and its possible connection to the UFO phenomenon. That whole activity that I began engaging in at that time led to my being made general counsel for the Disclosure Project, which is a major project to bring together government employees and military officials, etc., to provide information to the press at the National Press Club in 2001 about the extraterrestrial potential presence on our planet. I've also served as legal counsel for Dr. John Mack at Harvard University when he was dragged up in front of a tribunal because of his writing a book about the psychological events around these contact experiences. I now represent Luis Elizondo, who was the head of the top secret program in the Pentagon investigating the UFO phenomenon. It's in that context that I've come to grips with the potential philosophical and theological implications of our human family not, in fact, residing at the apex of all intelligent life in the entire universe. And we're now working in a 501c3 a public interest organization that has been created by our Romero Institute to address these profound philosophical, theological, and geopolitical questions that need to be engaged in by our human family in order to adjust our human worldviews, which are extraordinarily homocentric, into a better understanding of our actual place in the cosmic order. This is going to be an entirely new paradigm. This is going to complete the entire octave of different human worldviews that actually place us in a more realistic context for the future, because we have another several thousand years of relationship that we're going to be engaged in with the extraterrestrial civilization, which native people and indigenous people have known for many hundreds of years and have talked about regularly, the star people. So this is an extraordinary period in our human history and in the history of Western civilization to actually begin to finally integrate the kind of cosmological worldview that indigenous people have had. And we are right here within basically 2 weeks of St. Francis, or Pope Francis, having actually denounced the doctrine of discovery, which since 1493 has insisted that the European culture had the right to vanquish the indigenous people of the world. And we now have to start adjusting how we're going to be integrating the bona fide viewpoints of the indigenous people into our view of our human family in Western civilization. I'm privileged to be the head of that 501c3 public interest operation that's going on now, that will be the UFO C3. And I'm in dialogue with people in the United States Senate Intelligence Committee that have now mandated the creation of a new office in the United States government to which all the information needs to be conveyed from all of our U.S. military services, all the defense contractors, all of the intelligence agencies now, so that the Congress of our United States can start to participate in this extraordinary period that we are now engaged in, at the same time that the James Webb Telescope is discovering more and more of these exoplanets, where they're now becoming more and more convinced that intelligent life exists. So this is an extraordinary moment in our human family where all of these forces are coming together at the same time that our human family is confronted by the threats of global climate change, which the indigenous people have been warning us about for decades. That we're contaminating our whole planet, that our human family, right from the very beginning, in moving across the Turtle Island here, we're just laying waste to the environment and destroying the buffalo and leaving them rotting in the sun. The complete disharmony between the European culture and the natural order of things. So this is an extraordinary period of integrating all of these different worldviews into forming a new worldview that can take into account our proper human place in the natural environment of our entire universe.
The portals are opening, the timelines are shifting, the paradigms are transcending. Humanity is awakening, our light is expanding. It's time for us to dance and sing.
We are about to reach the most important moment in our entire human history. We are about to meet our cosmic family. For eons, humans have interacted with non-human intelligence. Thousands upon thousands of people across the entire globe have reported sightings, encounters, and all kinds of cool phenomenon associated with those. And over the past 30 years, I have been communicating with some of our cosmic family, and I'm teaching others to do the same. It's important to think about our future with our family amongst the stars. They are going to teach us, we are going to learn from them, and they are going to learn from us. It's going to be a synergistic relationship. This is the most important time any of us could even possibly conceive. I am so excited to be alive in this moment, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. Humanity is on a strong evolutionary path right now. The divine feminine is coming into our energy. We're starting to recognize each other telepathically, and we're getting signals across our entire planet that it's time for us to make some big changes and think about ourselves in a broader perspective as more loving, kinder, and more friendly to our neighbors across our entire planet, and reach our hands now across the stars.
When do we get to see more of you? Yeah, when are you coming to the Earth in groups?
Well, the Ascended Masters and Divine Cosmic Beings and the aliens are already here. In order for you to see us and connect with us, you raise your vibration. Through meditation, through loving unconditionally, through communing with nature, through prayer. Match your light up with their light and ask that they shower you within their light. It's like creating a tube of white light.
I've been asked a number of times whether or not there is a reasonable likelihood that the extraterrestrial civilization will intervene in some way to try to save us from ourselves. And I always respond to that with this, that I tell the story about a young boy who loved butterflies. And he used to collect butterflies, and he had this huge, aviary place out in his backyard where the butterflies could live in their own habitat. And he wanted to find an example of a monarch butterfly. And he actually found a cocoon of a monarch butterfly, and he brought it home, and he put it in a little box with cotton and put lights on it to keep it warm. And it eventually started to develop, and it was the butterfly had developed and was trying to break out of the cocoon, and it was struggling and struggling, and it was struggling against the last silken thread of the cocoon to try to break free, and it was struggling and struggling, and the little boy started feeling so badly about this problem that the butterfly was having, that he got a little pair of shears and he cut the last silken thread that was struggling, that he was struggling against, and the butterfly came free, and it was an absolutely perfect specimen of a monarch butterfly, except that it could never fly, because as it turns out, it was in the struggle, and that last struggle against that last silken thread that would develop the muscle structure that it needed to fly. That's the condition of our human family at the present time. We're struggling against the silken threads that we have woven around ourselves, that the indigenous people have been talking about Western culture for hundreds of years, that we have to break that last silken thread ourselves in order to qualify for the next worldview that we have to come to together, and we have to bring all the people of our planet together in unison to share all of the insights that have been developed down through the many centuries, to really bring to bear, to develop this new worldview that we have to have in order to qualify for citizenship in the much larger universal family.
SETI stands for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And for those who may have seen the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, and they showed those giant dish antennas in the movie, that is SETI. And so SETI was built by our government to interact with aliens or extraterrestrial intelligence. Well, I have a remote ranch out in the wilderness of New Mexico, and just by chance, my driveway, which is nearly 30 miles long, at the beginning of it is where the first aliens of the Roswell incident crashed, literally just off my driveway. And my neighbor out there, a gentleman whose last name is Barnett and was featured on Time magazine about the Roswell incident, is the person who found the first ships that crashed, and also the person who dragged the one thought to be living alien out of the ship and kind of protected him. And then the government came and took him and started Area 51 and took the ship away. Well, Barnett and I got to know each other some, and he asked me if I'd like to see part of the spaceship. And he took me to a barn, and he had some pieces of the metal from the actual spaceship that the aliens crashed in. And he went on to tell me that the alien that he had helped did not speak, but that he could feel its thoughts, and that it was not a malevolent kind of an energy, but rather a loving and caring energy. And he felt very safe with this alien, and his heart really hurt that they took the alien away. Well, the government came and they took into custody all the people that lived in the part of the New Mexico, this is where my ranch is located. They took them all and they deprogrammed them for months, but they did not take Barnett. He ran into the mountains on his horse and they didn't capture him, and then he later shared the story. Well, the government said nothing happened. There weren't aliens, there weren't star people, they didn't come to planet Earth to talk to us or do anything. But I have a question I always like to ask people, and that is this. They built the very first SETI site just off the end of my driveway. So they spent millions of dollars back in the 1950s, maybe it might have been hundreds of $1,000,000 today. And then not too many miles away, they built what's called the VLA, the Very Large Array, which until just recently was the largest telescope on Earth that could speak to outer space and the stars. And the question I have is, if there aren't aliens and there aren't extraterrestrials and there isn't extraterrestrial intelligence who's come to help guide us in the future, then why did they spend something over $1 billion building these intense scientific instruments to speak to people in the stars?
Excuse me? Excuse me?
Yeah, what's up?
Are all aliens little gray beings like you?
I get this question all the time. No, there are so many types of aliens. We got Andromedans, Arcturians, Anunnaki, Cassiopeians, Draconians, Lyrans, Mantids, Reptilians, Pleiadians, Sirians, Zetas, which are grays, but so many other types of grays as well. And then don't even get me started on hybrids. That's aliens and humans together. Hope that helps.
It takes all kinds. To make a village.